We can't just think kids are going to hit the ground running. So when I say whole child, understand experiences that will be brought to you by a school counselor or a school psychologist or your principal, right? That will tell you, handle with care that we had a situation. And then that handle with care needs to be taken care of holistically, which means intervention team meetings need to happen, which means we've got to call parents in. So that's what I mean by whole child. I'm not just looking for all the A's. I'm looking for great grades, of course, and success, but I'm also wanting to see how they are socially. If they are, doing things inappropriately on social media and causing harm to other students, I'm not worried about your straight A's.
Yeah.
I want you to be a decent human being when you walk out of the school. I want your parents to know that bullying is not allowed. And I don't care that you have the A's, because we got to make you a whole person that's going to be successful in our community and our work.
Hey leaders, welcome to episode 13 of Hot Conversations with School Leaders. Today, we're going to have a hot conversation with Dr. Jennifer Rucker, current Director of Alternative Programs and Student Engagement within Rico County Public Schools. Dr. Rucker has worked in many positions supporting students. She has been a Director of Equity and Student Support Services, Professional Learning Coordinator, Principal, Assistant Principal for Student Learning, and School Counselor. She is unique in that she did not take the traditional road to the principalship by starting in the classroom, yet her skills as a school counselor helped her lead her staff and students in becoming a Virginia school to watch. She believes in supporting her staff so they can educate the whole child, and there are no excuses in that pursuit. This is going to be a great episode to inspire, challenge, and encourage you in your school leadership journey. Let's get to the episode. So, Dr. Rucker, if you would, can you share with everybody just your leadership journey and background?
So my journey started after undergrad. When I finished undergraduate school, I had an opportunity to jump into enrollment management, which is college admissions at my alma mater. I was the director of multicultural recruitment for a predominantly white women's college. So that was a huge leadership opportunity for me. Then I shifted on and decided to get my master's degree in school counseling at now the University of Lynchburg. Had some wonderful experiences there in student affairs, and then transitioned to the University of Richmond. Left the Lynchburg area, came to University of Richmond and West Hampton College at the University of Richmond, and shifted into school counseling, which is my love. I consider myself a unicorn in that my transition into leadership is not the traditional steps. So as a former school counselor for 7 or 9 years, actually, I then became a school administrator, first assistant principal position in Charlottesville City Schools for a couple of years, and then became principal in Goochland Middle School, and then jumped into leadership in central office in Chesterfield County Public Schools with 2 positions there. And now I'm back in Henrico County as Director of Alternative Programs and Engagement. So I've had a lot of opportunity. And every position has been an opportunity to enhance my impact on students. And so I've just been really blessed to have had those experiences come in front of me, and I've just gone for it every single time. So started off higher ed, shifted to public education and counseling, and then shifted into school administration from there. Now I'm a central office. So it's been a wonderful journey, but I will always remember all of the things that I've done that has gotten me to this point. You don't lose it because you leave it.
So, you brought up something that's really interesting to me. So, my wife has been a school counselor. She's been a teacher and a school counselor. I've been a teacher and an administrator. How do you feel like there was a big shift from one to the other? Like you were a school counselor and I had to think totally differently? Or do you feel like what I learned from that, I was really able to make me a better leader? Because like you said, you didn't go the traditional route.
Right. It's interesting. I've gotten that question a lot. I can't compare myself to the classroom teacher, but I can say that as a school counselor in a high need school, 2 of them, I was able to really work alongside school principals. So the principal that I worked with at one particular school really just embraced me as a leader. Initially, when I came in as the school counseling director, I was on administrative teams. I was on leadership teams. He trusted me with the master schedule, She trusted me with everything. She was very transparent in her leadership, and you never saw her in her office. She modeled for us what leadership should look like. And I don't know if I ever had a chance to thank her for that, but she didn't keep anything to herself. So all of my work as a director of school counseling was being involved in the school improvement process, making sure those that I supervised understood the school improvement process, creating master schedules that met the needs of our students and teachers, honoring our teachers and working alongside them. But I also did lots of classroom lessons, collected a lot of data, looking at the needs of students, whereas some, classroom teachers have, 150 kids from a five period day. At the time we had 2,200 students that we had to manage. And so I had a larger perspective. I will say that any teacher that has their specific craft, if you had a band instructor or a band teacher or music teacher, they also have to learn what instruction looks like in math and science. And so as a school counselor, I leaned into that. And it took a while, of course, but I think it takes a while for anyone who shifts into leadership. I do think I had the leadership chops early because of the responsibilities. And it really just gave me the traction that I needed to step foot as an assistant principal. So I had a really great journey. I would not recommend it for everyone. And I don't recommend, I don't say it on the soapbox and say everyone should do this because I don't think they should. And I don't think every teacher would say that every teacher should. And so we'll say the skill sets that I have obtained as a former school counselor, still school counselor, helped me become a better administrator because I was able to have that empathetic lens to see every side of a story, to also get people from point A to point B and C and D in a manner that wasn't always evaluative and punitive, but more of a thought partner. And also to help students, especially with discipline issues, to see the whole picture. So my philosophy, I recall my first letter that I wrote to the community when I got the position as principal. And it said, my philosophy is the whole child. And so as a former counselor, the whole child is what I look at when I'm looking at students, not just academics, but personally and socially.
And I think what's impressive about the work that you did, like, so everyone knows, I am now the principal of the school that Dr. Rucker was the principal of. And her name is still talked about in the building, which to me shows, right, that she made a lasting impact because I still have staff who were there when you were there. And so you are still spoken very highly of in that building. I'm going to stay there for a second, though, with you being the principal. What was that like, you coming in?
I had only been an assistant principal for 2 years at a high school outside of the district that I became principal. So I immediately knew that I was a transplant, called myself a transplant.
Okay, gotcha.
And that means honoring the community that you walk in, understanding that I had a lot to learn about those that I'm serving. So I didn't come in showboating thinking I knew it all. I needed to learn from them as much as they need to learn from me in order for their children to be successful. So for me, it was, again, exhilarating and frightening, but I had so many opportunities prior to before that first day with wonderful experiences. In Charlottesville City, I was able to join the recently appointed administrator program through Virginia Tech. You and I both know Dr. Wayne Harris that leads
Yeah.
that program. And that program it set the tone of what I wanted to aspire as a leader. It allowed me to have a lot of self-reflection because when you hit the ground running as a first year administrator, you literally don't take time for yourself to understand where you are. And so that was a year-long program. And then I also had an opportunity to go through a program in the Richmond area called EduLead that was led by the University of Richmond. And that was a 3 or 4 day program that I went in and heard from superintendents from across the region that helped us. There was a number of us as new principals that actually sat down and talked through some of the challenges we would have and how to get through those challenges. So those two programs were great, which is why I wrote my dissertation on the recently appointed administrative program, because that program set me apart, I think, from a lot, because it allowed me to really take a deeper dive instead of just hitting the ground and running. Caused me to pause a lot, to self-reflect on my leadership. But what I found when I came into the principalship is the support from the central office, my superintendent at the time, assistant superintendent, school board, they were all behind me. They wanted me to succeed. And because I was in a smaller district, I was able to really touch base with our superintendent and central office staff. And so teachers were excited. But the first thing I did was held one-on-one meetings with every single person in the building over the summer. So that was my summer. Again, not coming in thinking that I knew everything, really wanted to hear from everyone. So it was exhausting, but it was worth it. And it was one of the best jobs I've ever had in my life and the most exhausting, emotionally, not physically. I was a little younger then, but emotionally, um, because I just wanted to do my best for the kids. I was a servant leader. I come in as a servant leader, and they relied on me every day. And so, and every single part of them relied on me every day. So I took that honor very close to my heart.
This is tough for me because you're hitting so many different things. Like
I
as you're
def-
talking, I'm like, ooh, ooh, ooh. I want to try. So I'll start off with one. I'm gonna try to make sure I write it down. Remember the next one. So, how do you take care of yourself as a school leader? Because I agree with you. Like there are days I come home and I am exhausted. Like I don't want to answer questions. I feel almost empty, and it's taken me a long time to understand how to kind of refill myself, put boundaries around myself so that I know, and I still got to have something for when I come home with my wife, with my kids, for myself. I just want to be able to enjoy the day knowing that. And I think when I didn't give myself those boundaries, I would then start to question, do I want to do this anymore? Because I'd be burnt out. So I'd be like, I don't want to do this anymore. So what do you do for yourself? And what did you do for yourself, even now as a leader, to just like refuel, replenish?
Surround myself with very smart people who could help me do the job. So I never felt like I was alone. I always leaned in, asked for help. I had a very strong leadership team of teachers. I had a very strong, again, support from administrators from central office. I had wonderful colleagues in the district who were also principals that we leaned on. I found my people immediately, and those people were already there. They wanted me to succeed because if I didn't succeed, they wouldn't succeed, you know?
Gotcha.
So I was able to have courageous conversations to get to a place where there was trust. I was able to be vulnerable with them, transparent. They respected that. And I did my best to stay ahead of the game. So lots of planning, lots of to-do lists, lots of organization, but creating a school environment that really was able to function without the chaos. Does that make sense? And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that took a while, but our teachers need that. Our teachers need to know that you are there for them and that you support them in their job. And to do that, you have to create a climate and culture that has expectations that everyone is to follow in order to function properly. So that takes a lot of the question marks and stress. There are going to be pops up of things here and there, but the procedures, logistics, operations, if you can get that down pat of how we start the day, move to lunch, transitions, all of the logistical operational things, if you can get that taken care of with your leadership team, again, or your assistant principals, I only had one at the time, then it will run itself. That part will run itself so we can get to the reason we're here. We are instructional leaders. We are an educational organization. Let's get to learning. But a lot of that operational human management, I should say, if you don't have that down pat, it can disrupt your learning environment. And so that requires lots of discussions with families, with students, grade level meetings, all the meetings that you need to have that probably some of my former teachers like, we met all the time, right? But we met in a way to build smaller communities within a larger school. So sixth grade, seventh grade, eighth grade, or when you're in high school, it was English 9, English 10, English 11 when I did high school. You have to meet in smaller communities so we're consistent with the delivery of instruction and understand the expectations. So that's how I kind of was able to take deep breaths. On Friday, I always sent my message out that would go out on Sunday. I did that at the end of the day with my custodian coming in and make sure I was good, close the door while he was vacuuming, right? I always just tried to stay ahead of the game, but I wanted our parents to be informed, our teachers to be informed. You never want anyone to be blindsided by what's going to happen in their workplace. Once you get that down pat, instruction is going to take off. And so, that's just we're going to have a 2-hour delay or a pep rally tomorrow. It's just the respect for people to know what's happening. And I know that seems so minuscule, but it's not. When you go to work, you should know what's going to happen, because when my door is closed and I'm teaching, I need to know what's happening on the outside of the door. Because of the time that teachers take with lesson plans and assessments, small group instruction, et cetera, interdisciplinary lessons, it is their right to know what's happening in the building. And so operations can take a lot of time. But if you get that down packed, then you're not chasing that train, and then instruction will take off and you can be the instructional leader you want to be.
So how do you feel like you kind of came in knowing how to do that with like working with people? Because I have found that many people don't necessarily know how to do that.
Yeah.
I know when I came in as a leader, my first principalship, I kind of thought I was the mayor, right? So I was trying to get people to like me, all the different things. Just I didn't always have the hard conversations, and I saw the mistakes in that. So then in my second principalship, I was much more, yeah, we got to have a tough conversations, but I'm also going to make sure that if I'm trying to hold you accountable, I am also showing you that I'm holding myself accountable to
Absolutely.
doing all the things that I'm asking of you. So kind of going back to what you were talking about, you went through the new administrators program. I went through that
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
What are things that you went through to kind of help you there, or did you feel like you kind of had that piece going in?
I think having principals when I was a director of counseling and then going to Charlottesville, I just observe. I observe great leaders in my spaces to see what they do, not to emulate, but just model what it is to hold themselves accountable, what it is to have order, what it is to make sure that everyone knows what the expectations are. I got a lot of that from just being in public schools with great leaders. You know, it is a big deal to welcome teachers on the first day. It is a big deal to drop in and let them know that you see them. It is a great deal to let the faculty know that you saw a wonderful lesson. It is a great deal to let them know you appreciate them coming to the basketball game. If we ask our students, if we tell our students we can give you incentive points for PBIS, why are we not giving, you know, shout outs to our teachers for going above and beyond and doing the great work that they do? So it really does create a very strong culture and climate. The climate, I should focus on that more. It creates a climate of positivity where that principal cares just as much as I do. And I see the work that she's putting in or he's putting in to ensure that the space is where it needs to be. We get the climate survey every year. People, it's the feel. How do you feel about, right? It means a lot. And I think, some people don't want to talk about touchy feely things, As a counselor, I'm fine with that. But it really is important for us to sit back and talk to teachers about how they're doing. And what do you need from me to make this place a place that you can feel comfortable in? What do you need from me? I had lots of exemplary teachers when I was in Goochland. And some of them came to me and said, okay, so how was the evaluation? I was like, it was good. I'm writing it up. No, I want you to really tell me. And I'm like, I am.
Yeah, yeah,
I am.
yeah,
And so it wasn't a quick turnaround for some of my evaluations. It was thoughtful, though. They appreciate you being thoughtful in what you were saying and the suggestions you were offering. And if I needed to seek clarity, I said that in the evaluation, and I left it open for us to have conversations. And it wasn't just closed book done. And so, I was learning while they were telling me exactly when I came in too late for a part of an observation and I missed
yep,
something. Looking at the lesson plan, I couldn't capture it. Those things, that's their craft. Honor them.
yeah.
Give them the time that they deserve for that. And so, again, that's part of the climate that I really tried to work on. And it was hard. It was hard work. Principalship is very hard work. And it was before COVID. So I don't want anyone who's listening to this to think, oh my gosh, you did all of that. No, after COVID. No, I know the leadership journey looks different now. I understand that. I'm very much well aware of it. I was in central office during COVID and the support we had to offer. And so it looks different. But some of that foundational still has to happen. If more so now than ever.
Hey, everybody, this is Matthew Mason. I am the host of the Hot School Leaders Podcast. Look, I just wanted to take a second to tell you thank you. Yep, just want to tell you thank you for showing up every Thursday for our guest, for some time just to be honest, open, and transparent. The goal of this podcast, the goal of this YouTube channel is to inspire, to encourage, and to challenge you in your leadership journey. And as we are growing as school leaders, making sure we're better and showing up every day for all of the stakeholders who are in our schools. Look, I just want to take a couple seconds to ask you to do a couple of things. First off, I need you to share, then I need you to follow, I need you to like, I need you to comment, I need you to subscribe. I need you to do all of those things because when you do that, it's going to keep pushing us out there. We're going to get more resources and hopefully make this thing better for you every week. So again, if you can subscribe to the channel, make sure you follow the podcast. We're on Apple and we're on Spotify. Make sure you comment because when you comment, it lets us know how we can get better. Make sure you do all of the things that I shared earlier. So again, we're hot leaders. We're honest, open, and transparent. Again, I tell you, thank you. Let's get to the episode.
So hearing you say that, how do you define leadership now in the public school setting? Because I had to tell myself literally, maybe it was this morning, my days run together, but I had to tell myself, it's like, hey, sometimes Matthew, you're trying to make things easier, and sometimes just coming to a point where it's like this is just not an easy job. So yes, there can be things that make things less complicated, or there are things that can make certain parts of it easier. But you're working with people, you're working with students, you're working with the community. It's just not an easy gig. So what do you feel like? How do you define that now?
I think more so now than ever, especially in my current role, leading with grace is very important.
Okay.
And
Can you
I won't
expound
say,
on that?
yeah.
Yeah.
Prior to 2020, I think there was a different type of leader out there, very high expectations, and those expectations can't be dropped. We still have to have high expectations because we're dealing with, we're supporting our students. Our most precious commodity is our kids, right? But understanding that people have gone through things and those excellent teachers who come in every day, they're doing the best that they can and they have a story. So it's going to take a principal who understands that there's a human being behind the teacher that has gone through things that you may not ever know. So meeting people where they are and coaching teachers is really important now. And it's being spoken about more so than I've heard before. Coaching, guiding, and I really appreciate that because that's my background. Working alongside them more, and also being very self-reflective as a leader. Understanding that if you have more than one child, you understand what I'm about to say.
Yeah.
One child can handle a response different than another one. And not to say that our teachers are children, but we're talking about human beings that are coming from different pathways. We have to know how to work with everybody in our space to get the best out of them. So that's what I mean, leading with grace, meeting them where they are, and being self-reflective of how you're perceived in your leadership. And I've had to be self-reflective quite a bit. I stand 6 feet tall. I'm a tall Black lady that it's very confident in what I say and how I say it. And I can't change that. But I can be aware of how I'm perceived in certain scenarios when I have to have courageous conversations. That's my responsibility.
Yeah. Do you feel, what are some things that you feel like, hey, now that we've gotten through COVID, you've gotten to your newer positions, would you go back, if you go back in time and when you were leading Goochland Middle School, what are some things you would tell yourself then that would be like, hey, here's some things to change, or hey, follow your gut? I've told myself that sometimes, man, if I could go back in time, I would tell that Matthew, hey, your gut wasn't wrong. Stick with your gut right there because you were on to something.
Yeah, I knew you would ask this question. My gut, so I followed my gut quite a bit. I think there were times when I was going too fast
Okay.
and I just didn't take the time to take deep breaths and to pause before making some decisions. I do regret that from time to time. And there's nothing specific. I just recall having to move very fast. We were a schools to watch. We were Apple Distinguished School. We were doing all the things. We were doing, Scrum. Like we were doing so many things
Yeah.
that I probably should have taken a couple of deep breaths to really get to know all of my teachers and families. The family part really, I would like to have gotten to know a lot more of my families.
Gotcha.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
Understood.
because it's a small community. So,
Yeah.
with a small community, other than seeing people at games, and I didn't live in the county, I had a home, and then I got married while I was there, and we moved, and it just wasn't in that county. But I think if I had lived there, I probably would have really been immersed in the community a little bit more. I think that would have been helpful.
I will tell you, as somebody who was there, it looked like you were very well immersed. When I came, for our viewers, that it was the high school had gotten a whole new team, so we all came, 2 new APs and a new principal, and it was cool to be able to go to the high school side because we were building culture at the high school. Whereas right across the hall, and the way the high school and the middle school are, they're connected. So literally, I could go right across the hall and see Jen in her office, and you could tell the difference. Not because anything was bad. So for anybody listening, nothing was wrong. It was just when you walked over to the middle school side, you could tell that there was solidified expectations. Like people knew what they were supposed to do. And you could do that without really talking to folks. Like you could just walk around and just be like, okay, I know what's going on. I can find my way around. People were smiling when you walked around there, and that was cool. So to hear you say that piece, I will tell you, I would have immediately been like, no, she has a good thumb on the pulse. She was no nonsense too. I mean, we had a situation with a student, and yeah, Jim won't play, and I was like, okay, she is not playing.
Yeah. They used to hear my heels come down the hallway, and I'd click, 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 click. And when I walked by, the teacher was like, "They heard you," and I'm like, "Oh boy!" Like they just knew my stride. And but no, I love all the kids. Kids can make mistakes, and it doesn't mean it's the end. It just means that they need a break. But when they come back, always required to have a reentry meeting, and we always
Yes,
sat down and had some type of restorative conversation, and just to make them better and to let them know you got it. You got another chance. Let's go. I'm done with that. So it was a good time.
so I think this rolls right into the next question. In your experience, what does it truly mean to support the whole child?
They are, yeah, a child comes to you with all that they have from their community and their family. Their parents give them everything they've got. It is not up to us to decide which part of them that we like.
That's good. That's good.
It's just not, we have to accept them all. We have to accept every part, every child, and every part of that child. So we could have a kid that smiles and say hello every day with F's, and socially a little awkward, right? It's up to us to embrace that child, all of those categories, to get them to the next level to be successful. F's and all, awkward and all. I think what we can't do is leave behind certain elements that is impacting the other side. So if a student has gone through traumatic experiences, we know about ACE scores and things of that nature. I've
Yes.
never done that before. I've never given a child a test to know anything about ACE, but I do know in the research, know what it's about. But if we know a traumatic experience has happened with a child, why do we expect them to come in and sit quietly?
Yeah.
That
Agreed.
doesn't make, and I'm not saying that they need to be running down up and down the hallways and screaming and yelling and hitting people, but I am saying that they may be quiet, they may be reserved, they may need some time and extra help, but we've got to find a way to help the personal side of that child so that the academic side can come alongside it. And it may take some time, but that's when we are going to work with the family, bring the family in to help that child, to offer those outside resources if our school-based mental health team can't help them, but also get the teacher on board to understand the traumatic experience that happened with the child so that they can create instruction during small groups, put them in a different group so that we can catch the child up. Not have whole group instruction with a child that's failing who's been gone for 2 weeks because they had a traumatic experience. We can't just think kids are going to hit the ground running. So when I say whole child, understand experiences that will be brought to you by a school counselor or a school psychologist or your principal, right? That will tell you, handle with care, that we had a situation. And then that handle with care needs to be taken care of holistically, which means intervention team meetings need to happen, which means we've got to call parents in. So that's what I mean by whole child. I'm not just looking for all the A's. I'm looking for great grades, of course, and success, but I'm also wanting to see how they are socially. If they are doing things inappropriately on social media and causing harm to other students, I'm not worried about your straight A's.
Yeah.
I want you to be a decent human being when you walk out of the school. I want your parents to know that bullying is not allowed. And I don't care that you have the A's, because we got to make you a whole person that's going to be successful in our community, in our world.
How did you? Can you give some examples of how you did that at Goochland Middle School, and then also how did you get staff on board with that? Because not everywhere do we as adults think the same way about kids and what kids should be able to do and what success looks like.
Yeah, that pull yourself up by the bootstraps thing. Everyone knew
Yeah,
who I was because of my introduction of my whole child philosophy. So they knew from the beginning that this is what I was going to do. And so every parent I spoke to about whatever situation was occurring, I asked those questions about everything. And it didn't have to be a threat assessment or a risk assessment that I had to sit in on. It was just, how is that child doing? Understanding the developmental stages of students in middle school is huge. Again, that's my psych background, my school counseling background. You have to
gotcha.
know the students that you're working with. A sixth grader is totally different than an eighth grader.
Yes,
Eighth grader is
right.
totally different than a ninth grader. But that understanding of what the adolescent brain looks like or how it reacts and responds is something that was my responsibility to teach my staff. So I had my school psychologist. I worked with my school psychologist on this. They gave a session during our round robins at the beginning of the year. They gave a session during mental health month, during our faculty meetings. I had my school counselor to the right of me to make sure that we were working together so that when we had a return from suspension, it was an automatic. The student would sit in the front, will be retrieved by the school counselor. All I would do as a principal would say, "It's good to see you. I'm so happy you're back." The school counselor is going to pick you up and you guys are going to do some goal setting. She'd come in and tell me after the meeting what the goal setting was. If there was something private that took place, I didn't know, conversation confidentiality. I let that stay with the school counselor unless they hurt others or themselves, right? Mandated reporter work. But I had a system in place, and then that allowed me to go to sixth, seventh, eighth grade meetings or faculty meetings to talk about some things that was happening with that student that maybe we need to look at instruction a little differently. So we talked instruction in those meetings, but I also had mental health in those meetings. So my school psych and social worker at times would be in those meetings, in those grade level meetings too, to kind of bring that whole child perspective. I
What
had
do
a small
you?
team. I only had two counselors, and one administrator and a part-time psychologist, no social worker.
What? So hearing you say that, knowing that you didn't have a, I don't say necessarily a big group of support. You just didn't have a lot of different people. What is the energy that you bring in? Because there's going to be principals who don't have a lot, and the first thing you're going to tell yourself is, "Well, I can't do that because I don't have." Like, what is the appropriate mindset to have?
The appropriate mindset to have is that we are servant leaders and we're there to help our students. And you do everything you can to help them. If that's going to your community service board in the county, okay, if you don't have a position, you do have resources that you can
Yeah,
use in the county that can help you, that can provide wraparound supports. We have social work services. We have so many, Department of Social Services, excuse me. We have so many services within arm's reach, regardless of the division you're in. If you don't have it within your district, your school district, your county should have something. And so, if not, we have mentors. I'm from a small town. My hometown is Amherst, Virginia. Proud of Route 29, South 29, right? And I know for a fact that if I needed something, somebody would have helped me in my family. And if it wasn't in the school board office, then we would have county to come in to provide support. So there's no excuse, is what I'm saying. There's no excuse. But I think having those courageous conversations with teachers who, you see their DF report, let's start there with grades. What's going on with the DF report? Looking beyond the grades to see if there's a pattern. Why is there a pattern? Well, then we have referrals. Well, why is there a referral? Let's talk about the referral. Well, why is the child doing this? And then peeling that onion to figure out what is happening with the child. I can't tell a teacher what to do, but I can ask them to help a child.
yeah, gotcha.
Does that make sense? And so
No,
that's the
you
heart
you're
to,
on it.
yeah, that's the heart to heart you just have to have. And I don't call that courageous conversation. I call that just honest conversation. Are we here to just get kids to walk your path, or you want them to learn?
And I
Because
appreciate you. Well, no, I appreciate you saying
Yeah.
that because I've thought that as well. That we call these conversations a lot of different names, but it's just being honest. It's just
Yeah, but
sharing
just
what actually is
yeah,
going on.
yeah, just being honest, helping them develop empathy. Everyone doesn't come in with a school counseling background and they just don't. I'm not mad about that. I'm not angry about it, but I do come in with it. And if I can bring some perspective that can help a teacher with a struggling child so that they don't think it's them and that they know they have support, then we've won. That's it. We've won.
So you brought up empathy. How do you prioritize equity? And you can broaden this out too. Yes, in the school building, but in all the roles that you've played a part in, like how do you prioritize equity when making decisions that affect students, that affect your staff, that affect the different stakeholders that impact whatever role you're in? Like, how do you prioritize that?
So the work of equity is access, providing
Gotcha.
access so that every child has the ability to be successful and has access to all that's offered to them within that public school system. That's it. And so I've helped remove barriers by creating opportunities for students to take courses. I am still doing that now in the alternative program world. Why don't our students have opportunities to do things? I ask the hard questions. And I'm fortunate enough to work alongside some wonderful superintendents who are okay with me asking those questions because we are responsible for our future generation. And I can't be in a space where there's haves and have nots. I need to be in a space where the opportunity is afforded to all, and they can get access to it, and they make their decision on whether they take that opportunity and move forward. So equity has been a part of all what I've done. When I was in Goochland, I actually, we had the one-to-one initiative and didn't even have internet in the entire division, but we did it. We did it. Everyone had access. Everyone was able to do homework at night because we were able to tell them to download it to their iPad so they could do their homework at night.
Yeah.
I mean, we figured it out, even though the infrastructure wasn't there, and I'm not sure if it is now. No, we're working on that.
Yeah.
But it's just sad. It's sad that it's not, but it was my job to make sure that that wasn't a barrier. So we put structures in place. Teachers knew before the end of the class, make sure you download here now, let me see that you downloaded the assignment so that you can do it. So we put those structures in place and didn't penalize students if they didn't have it in on time because
Yeah.
we have to work with them because they didn't have internet in the entire division. And so, yeah, that's real talk and not so long ago. Equitable, opportunities for students to play ball, to have school supplies, all of those things. We have wonderful women's club come in and bring school supplies to students. In every district, we've had that. We've got to make sure every student has what they need to be successful. That's it.
So you reaching out to the community because you've brought up that a
Yeah.
lot of just
Yeah.
different groups that you all work with to get the supplies. Like how much time was spent on that for you? Because I think if you're a principal, that is just something that you need to understand. That's a part of your job. You got to connect to the community. You got to know what supports are out there, and you've got to connect so that you can bring them into the school. Because at the end of the day, like you brought up earlier, they're sending their best in the building, and these are their kids, right? So we got to make sure they have everything they need. So how much time actually went into that for you trying to connect?
Yeah. I don't
Uh,
recall it being a lot of time, but the time spent was impactful. So,
Gotcha.
went to the Rotary meeting. That was great. Went to the Rotary meetings a couple of times. Went to a church for prayer service with all ministers, pastors in the area. It was a Saturday morning breakfast. Went there and spoke. Went to an evening service at a church with the Rosenwald School. Yeah, went there to speak. Saw my kids sing there. So I was there and got in front of the church to speak, which was wonderful. And any club meeting that I could go to, NAACP meeting I'd go to, any place that people wanted me to go. I showed up. If I was invited, I'd show up. Sundays, I showed up. Saturday mornings, I showed up. Didn't have a lot of invites, but when I went, it was impactful. And I was just my true, authentic self. I wasn't trying to pretend like I'm anything other than Jennifer. And and I happen to be your principal. And I happen to want the best for your kid, but I need you to help me raise them. And then my sixth grade parents always laughed when I said that. but it was true. I'm with the kids more than you are, parent. And so I need you to help me raise them. So are we in it together? And when people saw the effort that I put forward, I think they appreciated it. The PTA board meetings were wonderful. They were fun. They were exciting. Parents let their hair down. We chatted a lot. We talked a lot about all things. And I just allowed that to happen organically. They got to see the real me, but they also knew Principal, Smith Rucker at the time. So again, not a lot of time, but very impactful when I had those conversations.
So, what do you feel like now students and teachers need from administrators that they may not have needed 10 years ago? I know you talked about COVID. We know that has totally reshaped education in a lot of different ways. But what do you feel like they need that, like you said, maybe 10 years ago, that wasn't even something we were really thinking about from a leadership perspective?
They need school administrators to need them to understand what mental health is. We hadn't even talked about mental health. Yikes.
Yeah. Yeah.
There is a gap, and no fault of anyone's, with school leadership understanding trauma, mental health, and the impact on academics, which is truancy. Kids who are high anxiety are not coming to school, which impacts accreditation. Students who've had traumatic experiences are not coming to school because they're not getting the mental health supports that they need. Again, access. And so you have to talk about those things, but it's so hard for a school leader now. It's so hard for them. And I respect them so much because it's a different student than, if someone's been in the game for more than 10 years, they're seeing a different student. Social media is impacting mental health. Keeping cell phones away from kids is important. Understanding substance use and how substance use is attached to mental health and traumatic experiences because it's an escape. So there is a need to understand all those things while balancing being an instructional leader. And so when you say to me, how did I balance it? I so respect you for asking me that question. But that should be to you. Like, I should ask you that. And what do you need from us? So as a central office personnel, as I've been saying throughout this, I'm a servant leader.
Yeah.
When a principal calls, I go. My team knows we are here to help. We are not here to judge. Yeah, I was a principal when, and I'll always have the principal hat on, but I also will honor the work that you're doing now and know that it's my job to help you. So, how do you do it? All those things I just named.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest with you. I think it goes back to what you said about your team, right? Like I think I was listening to somebody say one of the most important jobs you have as a leader is hiring and bringing in staff. Because like if I try to do it all on my own, which I have tried to do at times, you're just going to burn out. You can't do it on your own. Like, so for any leader who's out there, even if you can, it's only going to be for a little bit. It's no way you're going to be able to sustain that. So until you start to delegate, until you start to invest in people, I feel like we've been able to do a lot of good stuff at GMS because of releasing and like you were saying earlier, and being able to say, hey, you know what? We do have an issue with vapes that's going on. And like, how are we going to address that? And us talking about it and everybody getting on board and taking ownership of it. Heard somebody say one time, not trying to get buy-in, but trying to get ownership. He was like, if you get
Yes.
buy-in, you can sell out. Right. But if we have ownership on something, then now I want to see it succeed because I have stake in this thing. So I think those things have succeeded the most in our building when people have taken hold of it themselves and said, no, I want this to go well. I want the kids to not, do things that are inappropriate. I want to make sure that such and such is not suspended and they're gone and they're not in my classroom. I'll go in and work with them. Like when you get that going, I mean, it gets easier. It's not easy, but it just gets easier. So
that goes with the hiring process. When you hire teachers, ask those
that's
questions
good.
talk to me about a time when you had a difficult child and what you did. Ask the hard questions. Just say, and I think they would appreciate that, because we can't have interviews where we're not talking about those that we serve.
Yeah.
So
Agreed.
we see on the news all the time. We know what our students are going through. Provide scenarios for them and let them know that this is real deal. So I think that's an opportunity as well. But I do try my best in my current role to make sure that I give grace to principals. And there are times when I do have to say no, because there's probably not a reflection on the whole child before a decision is made. And my job requires that. My job requires that in an alternative setting. To move a student from comprehensive to alternative requires some intense support prior to them coming to alternative. And so I require that, but I also will help you. I will help you with those intensive supports before before the application comes in for alternative. So I don't say no without support. Does that make sense? I don't.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's good. So that was going to be actually my next question. So with alternative
Mhm.
placement, and when you're talking about a student not being able to go to their setting that they have been in, now we're talking about them being in another setting. Can you walk us through like your process so that a student, the whole child, is getting still everything they need? Because sometimes a student can go to alternative and it's hot conversation. As a principal, you're like, I need that student out of my building because they're causing us too much work. So I need them to go over there so I can do my job.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not going to tell you it's perfect, but I will say, going to the National Alternative Education Association conference, I work with and know a lot of people in the nation who goes through this. And so the most important thing I think about alternative program is that we see the problem, but we also have to have steps, because when we remove a child from their comprehensive setting, you're taking them from their home school, their social life, elective options, all the things that can actually support the child, to a smaller setting away from opportunities that they may have. So that's why it's a careful thought process, especially in larger districts, where
Yeah.
kids potentially have to travel. And so I don't want to take them away, take their access away, going back to that conversation, because we weren't utilizing our resources properly. So in divisions where there are lots of resources, we have to make sure those resources are in place to have tiered support for students. One of my jobs is the multi-tiered systems of support, and we talk about everything in tiered levels. What does every child get? What does tier 2 get? What does tier 3 get? You do that in classrooms as well. So we have to make sure that every tiered level of support is provided to students before we get to that. And
Gotcha.
so if you think of it that way, you're not just get them out of the building, which, honest conversation, believe me. Yeah, that's a hard place to be. And I recall when I didn't have alternative when I was in your role, and I had to come up with ways to be creative to support the child and support the teacher and the classmates. But when you do have resources in place to provide support and to alter schedules and to be more flexible, we have to think beyond what we currently have before we send students out of their comprehensive setting.
So what about this? Go ahead. No, go ahead. Finish.
No, I was going to say it's a tough conversation, but when you say no, again, if I say
Mhm.
this is not what's going to happen, I then push my team in to provide support.
So that was I was on my next piece. What encouragement can you give to the school leader who doesn't have an alternative setting, right? Like I don't have anywhere else for a student to go.
Having been in that scenario quite often, wow, we had desk outside of our office in the hallway. We checked in. It was my assistant principal at the time. Every morning, I stood in the same place. He stood in the same place. It was one entry into the building, and we welcomed kids. And I said good morning and welcomed all of them in, and was able, I'm really good with body language, to know when we're going to have a good day today or when we
Mhm. Agreed. Yep.
just know, you just know, you just know. And make sure you check on them frequently. That's when I had my counselors, myself, everybody checking in, and also our school nurses. I had phenomenal school nurses who actually know when a child is not well who knows when a child is not well because of the frequency of the visits to the clinic. Because mental health turns to physical issues,
Yes.
headaches, stomach aches, anxiety causes those things. So I would always say, hey, nurse, come on in and show me who's coming in today. And she would say, I
Yeah.
saw him 3 times. And so she was part of the mental health team. And so we talk through those scenarios quite often. Athletic director, cafeteria worker, my custodian. So when you don't have a full stock, tier 1 school-based mental health team, that larger divisions sometimes do have, you've got people who are watching, your library media specialist, all those people who can see what my custodian knew everything. I mean, everything. And when you can lean in and just say, not tell everything that's happening with the child, but to the point where they know the patterns of behavior in the cafeteria and things like that. It was really helpful. Your lead teachers, everyone, admin aides, if you had them, I didn't have any at the time, that was helpful. Coaches are very, very helpful. Secretaries. I mean, you have so many people that you just don't tap into that sees the behavior. When you have a student who comes to the main office and they sit and wait, your secretary's got eyes on them. Your cameras have eyes on them. You can pull the camera to get information that can help you with decision making. So don't cancel everyone out in small districts. We all are all hands on deck.
So one of the roles that you feel right now is supporting and helping to mentor principals. And so I wanted to, I wanted to find it. What are some key lessons you think they need to hear early in their journey? So I'm going to end up doing an episode on this where I just kind of go through my beginning as a principal. Like there's so many things that I won't say I was not ready. I do believe I was ready to become a principal.
Mm-hmm.
But that first principalship taught me so much about what I didn't know, which made me better for the position I'm in now. And there's a lot of things that I wish I knew that even though I went through the program, I went to the classes, all that stuff, it was good, but it just didn't prepare you for the day-to-day things that you got to deal with and kind of my own stuff, right? Like I wasn't confrontational, right? That's just not my thing. So because of that, when I then tried to lead people, I didn't want to be confrontational, which then posed a problem. So I had to get out of that, right? So, what are some of the things I feel like that you feel like new principals need to hear as they're beginning this journey?
Always stay true to who you are because you're bringing it all to the job anyway. So don't try to emulate and be anyone else but who you are. That's it. That's huge. And that's why I brag about who I am and where I'm from. I'm Jennifer Smith Rucker from Route 29 South, Amherst, Virginia. When I hit 29, I got an accent, man.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I carry that country girl with me because it's who I am. It never left. I just have on a jacket now. you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that's one thing. But secondly, be vulnerable. Give yourself the opportunity to be vulnerable. I'm a huge Brene Brown fan. And vulnerability, if I can say it, is not a sign of weakness. The best thing that I've ever done is to tell a teacher or someone, I don't know. And they look at you like you have all the answers. I'm like, no, I seriously don't know. But I'll find out. But right now, I just have no idea. And we all laugh and everybody laughs. And they're like, well, great, get back to me. I'm like, I will, because I really have no idea how to answer your question right now. And that just is a sigh of relief, like, hey, I'm still learning. I'm still learning. I just don't know. I don't have the answer. Don't feel like you have to have the answer to everything. And even if you have the answer, pause before you give the response. That running down the hall, do you have a minute? Do you have a minute? Do you have a minute? No, I don't. But I can answer your question if you send me an email.
Yep. There you go. Yep.
Because
Yes.
if you answer on the fly, then you're going to probably, as a knee-jerk response to something that's going to impact something else that you were not able to think about. So
Right.
never answer questions on the fly unless, you're being interviewed, of course.
All right.
Another thing is for new principals to get a mentor. Get a mentor. Have somebody that you can always rely on, a non-evaluative person, preferably someone not in your district, that you can speak to about all the things. And I'll tell you, it took me a long time to find one. And that was the first thing I learned that I should have done. And it took me a very long time to find one. I think also just embracing what you don't know. I don't have an elementary background. Elementary is where it's at for instruction, by the way,
Yeah.
hands down, hands down.
Great. I will agree.
And I bless the hearts of all the principals at the elementary schools in Goochland when I was there. I took their elementary teachers.
So I will, and I didn't mean to cut in. For those of you in secondary, that is a hack. If you need, you'll have great secondary teachers too.
Of
But if
course,
you want people who just get students as
reading.
they're coming into middle school, bring in reading, yes,
Yeah,
math,
yeah,
all that,
yeah,
groups, all of that,
all
bring
of
your
it.
elementary
Bring it
school
in.
up. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. And we were fortunate to have opportunities to go to the elementary schools and, when I was a principal, to see what instruction looked like. But then some elementary teachers wanted to follow their kids. And I said, well, come on. And so that helped a lot because we teach the content in secondary and they teach students how to read. And so I needed that because of the gaps in literacy and also just the structure. And so, it was hard for me coming from higher ed, high school, down to middle school, because I didn't understand those expectations and how strict they had to be. So that was a huge lesson for me. And they're very little students. Sixth grade is very tiny, and I'm very
Yeah.
tall, so that was tough too. A lot of tears. So that's just a middle school mindset. But I think any new principal needs a mentor, needs to be vulnerable, needs to respect the teachers who were there before you. Respect
That's good. Yeah.
Respect them. They know, they've seen many of you. They've seen them all. That was one of my first meetings. I've seen them all. How long are you going to last? And respect them for that because they've been there longer than many administrators. They know stories. They know where they know where the bones are buried. And then also embrace your families. I mean, with hugs, even those that you've had tough conversations with. Some of the families that I've had the most challenging conversations with were the ones that I get the hugs from because we went through it together. Turn the courageous, tough conversations into opportunities to build strong relationships. Don't miss that opportunity and don't run away from it. Don't run away from it.
Good.
Yeah,
That's
those are
powerful.
the few things. That's kind of all I got for that.
No, that's powerful. I'm gonna kind of wind us down now.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
gonna jump to the lightning round because I think you just put in a bunch of nuggets for the viewers to listen to. And so I'm glad we were able to do this because
I am
I've been
too.
looking forward to hear you just kind of share everything that you've got. So first question for the lightning round: if you could have one book or resource that you feel every school administrator should read or have, what would that be?
Right now, I'm reading about 7 books.
Okay.
It all depends on my mood. My husband laughs at me
Okay.
all the time because he's like, "You can't finish a book." And I'm like, don't talk to me. Right now, I need this. Right now, I need this. So,
Gotcha.
a book to read, I'm also a geek, and I actually have it with me, is Building Ranks.
Okay. Okay. What's that
I
about?
have, so this is by the NASSP. It's a comprehensive framework for effective school leaders. And it really is a foundational book with lots of resources in it. Again, I'm looking for a framework of how to lead.
Yeah.
And I
Okay.
think when there's so many books out there from so many wonderful authors, that's why I won't name one of the books that I'm reading. I don't want
Gotcha.
to highlight one. But when you're talking about school leadership, you have to have a framework and how you're actually going to tackle it. And so this book came out, I forget when. I remember when it first came out, I was actually at VASSP when the president of NASSP presented it. But like they had the vision and mission. Like these things
Okay.
can't be understated enough. I
Yeah.
just think people just don't think that this way anymore because we're such in a reactive state. Calm down,
Yeah.
find a framework and work it. Work the framework. This is a really good resource, not
Okay.
necessarily a book you can sit back on the beach, but a framework that you can use with your teams. And as a new principal, you can dive into to build out what you want your first 90 days to be like.
Love it. What 5 individuals, dead or alive? All right. So you can pick. They can be alive. They could no longer be there. It could be anybody. You're number 6, so you're not included in that 5. You're just at the table. Who would you have at your dinner table?
Okay. I'm over 50 now. Well, 50, yeah. And so you think about things differently now. So I would have my mom, who's still alive, bless her heart. She's the longest, she's the only one left in her family. She's a little over 85, 86. My father, who passed away when I was 20 years old. Suddenly, very traumatic. I need to see him. Like I want to talk to
Yeah,
him. I want to tell him everything and sit on the deck and
yeah,
be a grown up. My Aunt Annie, who is my mother's twin, identical twin, she passed away suddenly without warning, and I still have a card that's sealed that I never gave her. That tells you don't procrastinate, mail it, call them. And my dad suddenly passed away. So those are two people that I got to say I love you to him, but not to her.
yeah.
My husband's father,
Okay.
I married late in life and he passed, I've never met him, but my husband's a very quiet man and I want to know everything about him. I want to
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
And so we talk about our dads a lot. And I know that my dad would get along with his dad because they were both blue collar workers working in a plant. And so I just want to sit down and talk to him. And my maternal grandfather. I never met
okay.
him. I was 1 year old. And so I've kept it family.
You
At the
have,
end of the
yeah, yeah,
day, I know people are thinking, wow, she didn't say this person or that. I'm like, no. At the end of the day, the dash, from the time I was born to the time I die, a lot of it's important for me to talk about family. I don't get enamored by or in awe of celebrities. Back in the
yeah,
day, I would have said Oprah. You know
yeah.
what? She good. But I'm talking about the people who made me who I am. I don't run up and get autographs from people. Like that's just not who I am. Family is everything. So that's why I have those people. Because at the end of the day, they're going to remember me and know me for who I
What's cool is actually the second person who's done that. Who I
am.
think
Good.
I interviewed. And so we're getting that straight. But Jeff Milner, assistant
Yeah,
principal,
yeah,
yep. So interviewed him. He did the exact same thing. Had his son, had his
mhm,
his family, and he was just like family's important to him. So that's who I would want around the table, and I think that's cool. I like that.
yeah, yeah. That's why I am who I am. Yeah.
Yeah. So then the last question is, if you could have one person that you would want to see on the podcast, who would that be? But it's got to be somebody that you can help us get.
Hands down, Dr. Jamel Wilson.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
She's
Yes.
my mentor.
Gotcha.
She's everything. First Black
Okay.
female superintendent in Hanover County Public Schools, now the
Yes.
dean, a dean at University of Richmond. So many nuggets and support and so even and so professional and so tight and so everything. Like
She is.
I'm
Yes.
trying to get her to write a book. But I think Jamel Wilson is it. She has so much to offer educational leaders. And
Yes.
now not just, PK-12, but higher ed. Like that's a whole, yeah. And I know I spent some time in higher ed, but her experience is much different than mine. I worked with deans. I was never a dean. So I think her coming on your podcast would be pretty cool. And I will do
Yeah.
my best to get her.
I appreciate that. I had her for one class when I was working at UVA. And for all of our viewers, I agree with Dr. Rucker. If there's one individual you need to meet, it is Dr. Wilson. She is absolutely fantastic. Her power, her energy, her
Yeah.
what she brings to the table, like, yeah, top notch. So yeah, I would
Yeah.
appreciate that. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, and when can I give a shout out to the WELV organization, Women Educator Leaders of Virginia. I am the outreach coordinator, yeah, for that program. And so, yeah, so I did a closeout Ignite session, and Dr. Wilson was there. Funny story. She hugged me afterwards and said, "You're amazing," and I'm like, "It was really great to hear from. It was really great to hear from your mentor that you did a good job.
Well, you
That
remind
looks
me of
important."
her. You remind me of her.
Oh,
Yeah, most
well,
definitely. Yeah,
that's
most
really
definitely.
kind. That's
Yeah,
very kind
most
of you.
definitely.
Yes, she's wonderful. Well, this has been wonderful. I hope you can pull something together from all of my talking. But if you need anything from me, Mason, let me know. It is great to see you again. I am
Yeah,
so
yeah.
honored to have this opportunity and so proud of you.
I appreciate that. Yeah, and the beautiful thing is I know that. So I know there are different individuals that I have that I'm like, if I reach out, that they're gonna be there, and hopefully it's vice versa. If you need anything, Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm dropping it all to come and get, whatever you need.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All
All
right,
right.
everybody. Remember, this is Hot Conversations with School Leaders. We've been honest, open, and transparent. Appreciate you. I hope you got something out of this. If you didn't, I have to question you. I don't know what you've been listening to, but stay hot, keep leading. Love you. We'll see you though.